The first of 4 waiver wire periods in the 2024 MLP season has come and gone, and there's a lot to talk about. We have a few trades, we had a Premier League waiver selection, and things got particularly crazy in the Challenger League. We're going to break it all down. Go ahead, like, subscribe, and if you missed the Washington, D.C. event, go ahead and check out my video recapping all the action from that. The first transaction I want to talk about was between the DC Pickleball team and the Bay Area Breakers. DC sent Allyce Jones and $100,000 to the Bay Area Breakers, a Challenger League team, in exchange for Vivian Glozman. Now, Vivian Glozman played with Deckel Bar in the AZ Drive last season, so there's some experience there. I'm unfortunately too lazy to look up what their record was. Also, she is a more talented singles player, so this should help the Dreambreaker case. Allyce Jones and Rachel Rohrbacher were 3 and 6. They're one of 7 women's doubles teams in MLP with a losing record. I had mentioned in my last MLP recap video, if I'm one of these 7 teams, I might be looking to make a trade. I mean, why not? There are 5 really good women's doubles teams, and there are 7 teams that have struggled. In fact, we might not be done seeing moves here. Just because the waiver wire has passed doesn't mean you still can't make trades. The next trades to break down involve the Texas Rangers. Now, there are actually 2 trades and a waiver wire selection, but none of these moves really make sense in a vacuum. You kind of have to look at them all as just smaller steps of a larger plan. First of all, they traded Pablo Tellez to the Brooklyn Aces, a challenger team, for Martin Emmerich and an unknown cash amount. At least unknown to me. If anybody wants to drop a scoop in the comments, get in there. Texas then traded with the Utah Black Diamonds. They sent $100,000 in exchange for Utah's #1 overall waiver wire selection. Okay, now why would they do this? Well, I mentioned in my video last week I didn't think we would see any Premier League teams use the waiver wire unless there was a new big name that came into the mix, or they just fell in love with Kwang Duong, which I did, so I can't blame them. And, well, apparently Ryan DeWidgeon and the rest of the Texas Rangers team did as well, because they selected him with this pick. So looking at these 3 moves together, why trade Pablo? Why not just drop him? Well, simply money. I mean, you can drop him. Maybe he gets added by a Premier League team. I don't know. I don't really see that happening. Most of these teams with losing record on their men's doubles lines just haven't played many games or sunk a lot of draft capital into these players that still have a lot of value, and you're not really going to be ready to sell on any of them yet. Since they were paying $100,000 for that waiver wire selection, doing this trade helps to offset some of that cost. The previous trades we've seen involved $50,000 for Jay DeVilliers and Tyson McGuffin, and $100,000 that we just saw in the Allyce Jones-Vivian Glozman swap. So it's probably safe to assume that the value they got back in this trade is somewhere between those 2 numbers. Did they even have to make this Utah trade? I mean, probably not. I don't think anybody was going to make the move, but it's kind of like in the auction draft. You know, you might overpay for a player, but you don't really want to leave it up to chance. If you have a guy and you really want him, just go do it. Don't sit back and hope and say maybe, because if maybe doesn't work out, you're on to plan B. And maybe you don't like plan B. So why does Texas want to make this move in the first place? Well, Pablo Tellez and Ed Wright were only 3 and 6 on the season. Pablo was in the bottom 5 of overall win percentage of games. And him and Christian Alshon, when healthy, weren't a clearly dominant men's doubles team. So what you're doing with this move, you can presumably, I think, switch Christian Alshon over to play with Ed Wright. You keep Kwang Duong with Tina Pisnik. He just went 3 and 2 with her at this past DC event. And it's a pretty big upgrade in singles. Kwang Duong and Christian Alshon is probably the best duo of men when it comes to Dreambreakers. The women on this team aren't really known for singles, so hopefully that takes a little bit of the pressure off them. At the end of the day, this is an upside play on a young player who seems to have an extremely high work ethic, already is a stud at singles, and his doubles game is making strides. And just for the record, if you guys don't know me, my dad is the original GM and co-founder and owner of the Texas Rangers. He still owns a stake in this team, but he's not really involved at this point with roster management and decisions. My thoughts on this matter are completely my own and in no way represent any official statement from the Rangers. Before we move on, let's just go ahead and take stock of all the moves that the Utah Black Diamonds have done this season. Now, I tweeted about this. I thought it was a pretty clever tweet. Utah this year was the only team to not spend any real-life dollars in the auction draft. Remember, they didn't even spend all of their fake MLP Monopoly money. They also traded Tyson McGuffin for Jay DeVilliers and $50,000. That's right, Basil. And now they've sold a waiver wire pick for $100,000. Now here's the real clever part. We are going to be calling them the Utah in the Black Diamonds, because, I don't know, maybe it's not as funny as I thought. We can move on to where things really get interesting and, dare I say, controversial. Now look, in my last video, when I started talking about Challenger League, I looked at the data. There was a little bit of a dip. You're going to want to stick around for this. Now, we didn't know who was going to be eligible to be selected in this. Us fans did not have a player list. I'm not even sure the GMs knew. But sure enough, the APP All-Stars are in the mix now. California dropped Emily Cedarquist. They picked up Susanna Barr. Chicago Slice dropped Kelsey Grambeau. They added Megan Fudge. Miami traded up with SoCal, and they took Bobby Oshiro in place of Rihanna Valdez. The Florida Smash decided to make Yates Johnson's substitution role, filling in for Pat Smith, a permanent change. And then the fifth move, Bay Area traded up again with SoCal. So yeah, SoCal traded back twice. Bay Area, who was 5-1 by the way, they were in second place in the standings in terms of points per match. They dropped Rachel Redker, who had the best record among all women in Challenger League, and they added Jill Braverman. Bay Area now, despite being very successful in the one event they played, have dropped both their women. SoCal then traded up, and in the 8th selection spot took Yana Newell in place of Christine Maddox. This was kind of weird because they already had traded back twice, so they had the 9th pick, but then they traded up to get the 8th pick. I guess they got a little nervous that somebody else was going to do this. So like I said, with the Texas Ranchers paying $100,000 to get the first pick in the waiver wires, if you want your guy or your gal in this case, just do it. Go do it. MLP money has never made sense, so yeah, just do it. Interestingly, SoCal did not use that 9th pick. I kind of thought they were going to do a little double switcheroo here. Would have been interesting. It's the second round of waivers where we saw a few changes. California added Brandon French in place for GJ Young. That means Rafa Hewitt and Brandon French. This is going to be a Memes of Pickleball certified men's doubles team. It will be a chirp fest. Miami dropped Roscoe Bellamy, who had the worst record in all of the men in Challenger League. Wasn't too surprising to see them drop him, though there is a ton of upside there. I kind of thought they would have subbed in somebody who's maybe a little more of a win-now player, but instead they went with No Cliff, who I'm not super familiar with. He has a few good wins in the recent PPA tournaments. That was a little bit of a surprising move to me. And then lastly, Bay Area then dropped Patrick Kovka and added the recently dropped DJ Young, who I'm not even sure if he's healthy. I'm assuming these teams are doing their due diligence and just know more information that we don't know. But that was another surprising move. So Bay Area, second place team, 5-1, and only Colin Schick remains. So it was crazy, but the real interesting part is kind of how all this went down. The Nick tweets, "I can't blame the players and GMs for taking advantage of the situation right now, but what on earth is happening with this shuffle draft? Doesn't seem like it's fair." Pickleball Chick, aka Caitlin Kerr, who is a GM of the Las Vegas Night Owls, says, "Agree. We got punished for being 5-0 and drafting women. Jim Kloss, the self-proclaimed smartest man in pickleball, says, "It is maddening when you draft the best team and then MLP changes the rules to let new players in who are ineligible. Very unfair." Andrea Coop says, "Allowing these players to come back in after taking a buyout without signing exclusive contracts with UPA is wild." I tweeted this. The Chicago Slice were the biggest winners. Remember, they were the second waiver pick. They only played 10% of their season, but the waiver wire was done on points per match. Whereas the California Black Bears, who did get the first waiver wire selection, they played 30% of their season in a single event with a sub. So if you're going to tank, I'd rather tank 10% of my season than 30% of my season. Not that these teams were actually tanking. Anna Bright chimes in, "This definitely penalizes the teams that went very reasonably women first in the Challenger draft." Kind of echoing Caitlin Kerr's sentiment. Leanne Redkoff, another Challenger League GM, the Atlanta Bouncers, kind of pushed back on this. That narrative maybe isn't supported by the data. She brings up a good point there. My initial thinking was kind of in line with what Caitlin Kerr and Anna Bright had said. Chicago and California both went man first. They struggled, and now they get to add a first round, maybe even borderline premier caliber women on the team. So they have their first round men picked still, and now they have a first round woman alongside them. Look, it's a lot to digest. It's kind of crazy and seems a little weird. Jimmy Miller brings up a great point. We've seen this before. Jill Braverman came in last year on the Dallas Pickleball Club and Challenger, took a team from 11th or 12th place all the way to the first place. Maybe if they'd seen this coming, they could have done some kind of auction for these players. We know MLP loves doing auctions and other ways to extract money from their owners. It was a pretty crazy day, and lots of people were fired up about it. Jimmy Miller tweets, "It is crazy how slimy some agents in pickleball are. League sends out a memo very clearly stating the maximum salaries of bought-out players, yet some agents are requesting 3 to 4 times under the table, then lying about clients' availability if you won't pay. Wild." Only one thing to say to that is big, if true. I don't know. What do y'all think? Is this fair? It probably makes for a better product for MLP having these players in the mix. It certainly stinks for Rachel Retger, who went 10-2 and got dropped despite this. And like the Nick says in his tweet, it's really hard to blame GMs for taking advantage of this. All this, though, at the end of the day, we have a drastically shifted landscape in the Challenger League. I'm really not even sure how it's going to work if there are APP conflicts for these players that are coming on board now. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. I don't know. We'll see. But hopefully you're up to speed now. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Follow me on Twitter. Keep the conversation going. Like, subscribe. Basil, come here.